जय जय श्री राधे। So Vaishnavan ko sadar saprem sanamra Jai Shri Krishna. Continuing with the reading of the 252 Vaishnava disciples of Sri Gosaiji biographies, starting on day 139 with Varta 117, the story of Tara Chandabai from Gujarat. He is a devotee of Tamasi disposition. In the eternal Leela, his name is Vachan Chaturi, who is very skilled in speaking. She manifests from Suraseni and is thus a form of her divine loving sentiment. He was born into a merchant's family in Gujarat. At the time, the village was struck by an epidemic of smallpox from which both his parents died when he was only 10 days old. He had an uncle who took him in and brought him up. That uncle was a Vaishnava and he hosted satsangs in his home. The boy got to hear the stories of the Lord's pastimes during those satsangs and he cherished the desire of going to Gokul and becoming Sri Gosaiji's disciple. Not too long afterwards, a group of Vaishnavas travelled to Gokul and Tara Chandabai went along with them. Tara Chandabai came to Gokul, Part 1. Tara Chandabai came to Gokul to have the sight of Sri Gosaiji. Once in his presence, Tara Chandabai requested Sri Gosaiji to initiate him with the Lord's name. Sri Gosaiji told him to go bathe in Sri Yamunaji. Having done so, Tara Chandabai returned to Sri Gosaiji and again supplicated him to accept him as a disciple, and Sri Gosaiji initiated him with the Lord's name. Sri Gosaiji completed Sri Navaneet Priyaji's lunchtime services and accepted the offerings back as Mahaprasad, and then most gracefully, Sri Gosaiji initiated Tara Chandabai with Brahmasambandh in front of Sri Navaneet Priyaji. When the temple doors opened for the Rajbhog Aarti, Tara Chandabai was most delighted to have the holy sight of Sri Navaneet Priyaji. Sri Gosaiji then settled the Lord down for his afternoon nap and then proceeded to his betak. All the Vaishnavas came there. They prostrated before Sri Gosaiji and sat before him. Sri Gosaiji welcomed them all. Tara Chandabai then joined them. He also bowed low to Sri Gosaiji and sat down. Sri Gosaiji took leave from all the other Vaishnavas, went inside to partake of his Mahaprasad, and then, after having some prasadi pan leaves, came again to his betak to sit down. Tara Chandabai was still sitting there, and Sri Gosaiji invited him to partake of some Mahaprasad. Having done so, Tara Chandabai requested Sri Gosaiji to let him stay there with him for some time in his service. Sri Gosaiji appointed Tara Chandabai as one of his personal servants. One day, a nagging thought came into Tara Chandabai's mind. This is part 2. He told Sri Gosaiji, who told him, "Release this thought from your mind, let it go." However, Tara Chandabai still approached Sri Gosaiji. "Oh Maharaj, someone has told some untruths about me. Please tell me who it was and what they said." Sri Gosaiji replied, "Do you think that I do not know you and that I would really pay attention to what others might say about you? I am telling you this for your own protection and safety." Tara Chandabai took to heart these teachings from Sri Gosaiji and supplicated, "O Maharaj, please grace me by telling me what to do so that my mind might become one-pointed and firm." Sri Gosaiji instructed him, "Read and recite the Sarvotam Stotra regularly. Then you will be able to fulfill the wish to have control over your mind." Tara Chandabai was delighted to hear this and started a regular recitation of Sri Sarvotam Stotra from that very day onwards. From this it is learnt that one should pay serious attention to the words of Vaishnavas and one's elders. Bhav Prakash. The moral of this story is that Vaishnavas should always be truthful and hide nothing from their guru. Otherwise they will be causing an offence. Instructions from elders must be regarded as good, constructive advice. This story has also revealed the character of the Sri Sarvotam Stotra. However distracted one's mind is, the faithful and pure-minded recitation of it will render the mind stable and clear, thus it grants the ultimate spiritual reward. Thus concludes Varta 117, the story of Tara Chandabai, servant of Sri Gosaiji, who was the recipient of Sri Gosaiji's great grace and an accomplished Vaishnava, with whom Sri Gosaiji was always pleased. There is truly no end to his tale. Continuing now with Varta 118, the story of a Mlecha from Mahavan. This is a Bhav Prakash. This is a devotee of Tamasi disposition. In the eternal Leela, his name is Gohani, who is so attracted and attached to Sri Thakurji's form that she follows him around all the time. She manifests from Madhuri, who is a Sakhi of Bhama and is thus a form of her divine loving sentiment. Once Gohani followed Sri Thakurji into a forest and he happened to catch sight of her. He told her to go to summon his friend Sri Dama there immediately. She objected, "Oh Lord, I cannot bear to be away from you. Please send someone else. I secretly get away from my family on excuse of coming to pick tenti berries so that I might have your holy sight. If anyone finds out about this, I shall not be able to come in here any more. I shall give up my life breath without your sight. I am totally dependent on you." Sri Thakurji then called his friend Subala to go to call Sri Dharma so that they could all play a new game. Subala went to Sri Dharma and told him to come quickly. Sri Dharma rushed over to Sri Thakurji and prostrated before him. Then they all began to play. Sri Thakurji became tired and Gohani fetched some sweet forest fruits and peeled them for him. She brought them to him in bowls made from leaves. She said, "O Lord, please accept these offerings." As she said this, some drops of saliva fell from her mouth into the bowls of fruit, but she was not aware of this. Sri Dharma saw it happen and said to her, "O female slave, are you going to offer foodstuffs polluted by your saliva to the Lord? Go to the earth and be born into a family of the lowest caste." Gohani was terrified and supplicated the Lord, I'm sorry, I did not realize my mistake. Please forgive me." Sri Thakurji replied, "You made this offence by mistake, but I cannot take back Sudama's curse. You will be born as a mlecha, but you will, however, soon be uplifted." Some way from Mahawan, at a distance of about 40 miles, there is a village, and she was born there as a mlecha boy. When he was 18, his parents died, and he went to live with his uncle who resided in Mahaban. Part 1. One day, Sri Gosaiji had gone to Ramanreti. He was initiating one Vaishnava son with the 8-syllable mantra, and thus accepted him as a disciple. The mlecha had come to that same place to collect some dry wood. He caught a glimpse of Sri Gosaiji in all his spiritual glory and decided there and then that he wished to become his disciple. Thereafter he came to Gokul every evening to have the sight of Sri Gosaiji. Every night he would sleep on Sri Thakurji Ghat, Thakurani Ghat, covering himself with a black blanket. Once, one of Sri Gosaiji's water carriers had gone out to perform his toilet, and so Sri Gosaiji had to go out to bathe in Sri Yamanaji in the dark. It is stated in the Shastras that one should not bathe in cold water at home. Part 1 continued. Sri Gosaiji went out to bathe. In the dark, he accidentally kicked that mlecha's head with his foot. When he realized what he had done, Sri Gosaiji said the 8-syllable mantra 3 times. He then bathed in Sri Yamanaji and went home. They then went to sit in the company of the Vaishnavas and said, He then went to sit in the company of the Vaishnavas and said, "See, I am Sri Gosaiji's disciple." The Vaishnavas went to Sri Gosaiji and asked him what this was about. Sri Gosaiji was pleased and said, "Call him in and let him sit a little way apart." Thereafter the mlecha would come to have the sight of Sri Gosaiji and sit near the door. Whenever Sri Gosaiji travelled to Sri Natadwara or anywhere else, the mlecha would accompany him. He would not even drink water, let alone eat, before he had the sight of Sri Gosaiji. Such was the grace upon him. When Sri Gosaiji disappeared from this earth, the mlecha felt such intense separation from him that he actually left his body. Bhav Prakash. The moral of this story is that for the one who has firm faith in the reality of Sri Gosaiji's words, everything they wish for is immediately granted. Thus concludes Varta 118, the story of the mlecha who became the recipient of Sri Gosaiji's great grace and an accomplished Vaishnava. There is truly no end to his tale. Aaj ke Anand ki jai. Sab Vaishnavan ko Jai Shri Krishna. Jai Shri Radhe.